Augustine of Hippo. You've probably heard the name, right? Well, his story is one of the most incredible transformations in all of history. We're talking about a philosopher, a theologian, a bishop, a guy whose ideas didn't just tweak Christianity, they basically built the foundation of Western thought for, like, 1,000 years. But here's what makes his story so fascinating. It's not just about how smart he was. It's about the absolute 180-degree turn his life took. So, the big question we're going to dig into is this. How does a man completely obsessed with pleasure and success end up becoming a pillar of faith? Let's get into it.
All right, so to really get the saint, you first have to understand the sinner. And let's be real, Augustine's early life was anything but saintly.
First, let's place him in time. He was born in 354 AD, right at the tail end of the Roman Empire. This was a world in chaos, a time of huge uncertainty. He literally died while invaders were at the gates of his city. So you gotta remember, he was a man forged in a world that was falling apart and being rebuilt all at once. He came from a pretty well-off family in North Africa, what we'd now call Algeria. But, money didn't buy him peace of mind, not even close. His youth was just defined by this deep internal struggle. He had this brilliant, restless mind that was always searching for something to hold on to. And listen to this. This is from his own writing. He said his early ambitions were all about a desire for wealth, power, and pleasure. I mean, how relatable is that? This wasn't some stuffy scholar living in an ivory tower. This was a guy who was all in on the material world. But that restless chase for worldly things, well, it was about to hit a brick wall. He was heading for a single life-altering moment that would change literally everything. So by the time he's 33, all that internal struggle, the philosophical questions, the personal crises, it all just reached a boiling point. He was completely at a crossroads, just deeply unhappy with the life he was leading. And then it happened. On a beach near Hippo, his search came to a dramatic end. He had this profound, overwhelming vision of Jesus Christ. Now, this wasn't some slow, gradual change of heart. No, this was like a lightning strike that just shattered his old world and completely reformed it in an instant. Think about that. One pivotal moment. That single experience became the foundation for everything. And I mean everything that came after. Every book he wrote, every idea he argued, it all flows directly from this one moment of conversion. And this new life wasn't just about finding personal peace. Oh no. It unleashed an absolute flood of intellectual and spiritual work that would go on to define Christian thinking for centuries. You've probably heard of his most famous work, The Confessions, and it was a total game changer. It's basically the world's first spiritual autobiography. He just lays it all out there, charting his own messy, complicated, and super relatable journey from a life of sin to a life of faith. And inside the Confessions, he doesn't hold back. He confronts his past head-on, really analyzing his desire for wealth and pleasure. He comes to this conclusion that sin isn't just about making bad choices, it's like a fundamental part of being human that can only be healed through a deep faith in God. But his impact went way beyond his own personal story. He laid down some serious theological groundwork. For instance, in Christology, he helped solidify the idea that Jesus is both fully God and fully human. In eschatology, that's the study of the end times, he hammered home the belief in a final judgment day. And he also pushed for the kind of organized, hierarchical church led by bishops that would become the standard for centuries. Okay, but maybe his biggest, most influential idea of all came in another one of his masterpieces, and it's all about this concept of two cities. So in his book, The City of God, he presents this powerful vision. He says there are two cities that exist at the same time. You've got the city of man, that's the temporary earthly world we all live in, driven by self-interest and sin. But woven right through it is the city of God, this spiritual, eternal community that's based on things like justice, mercy, and humility. And for Augustine, that's where the faithful truly belong. And you know what? This whole two cities idea was also his answer to one of the biggest questions ever. Why does evil exist? For Augustine, the answer was pretty clear. God didn't create evil. Evil is the result of human sinfulness. It's the consequence of all the messed up choices we make here in the city of man. So why are we still talking about some bishop from the late Roman Empire today? It's a fair question. Let's wrap this up by looking at his incredible, long-lasting legacy. His impact was huge, both right away and for the long haul. He was out there giving real, practical spiritual guidance to people all over the crumbling Roman Empire. He was a key figure in establishing the bishop as a central leader in the church. And, of course, his writings became, and still are, a cornerstone of Christian teaching. When you really boil it all down, his spiritual legacy can be summed up by these three virtues. His intense focus on faith, hope, and charity as the absolute core of a spiritual life, well, that still defines Christian spirituality today. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Augustine saw the city of God as this spiritual ideal, right? A community built on justice, mercy, and humility. So the question for us, all these centuries later, is, where do we see the blueprint for that city in our world today? Is it even possible? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.